Sir Yehudi Menuhin has just led the English Chamber Orchestra in the last part of Antonio Vivaldi's Four Seasons, Spring, Primavera, at a gala concert in Barbican Hall, where the Royal Academy of Music is honoring the 250th anniversary of the death of Antonio Stradivari. All the soloists are playing Stradivarius instruments, many dating from 1691 to the master's 93rd year in 1737. Soloist Manu Karikian performed his pyrotechnics on a 14-inch Amatisse Strad varnished with autumnal gold and red. Refining the techniques of his teacher, Niccolo Amati, Stradivari balanced elegant designs with unmatched sonic intensity. Like a full-bodied wine, the famous Strad sound seems to ripen with time and performance. Fortunate owners even claim that each Stradivarius has a soul, a human voice, all its own. Robert Cohen is soloist in the finale from Haydn's Cello Concerto in C. Scholars rediscovered this work only in 1961, and since then the concerto has tested the mettle of the most talented cellists. Haydn demands quicksilver scales that soar over the staff, a task tailor-made for Robert Cohen and the Bonjour Stradivarius. Robert Cohen was the virtuoso soloist in his performance of the concluding Allegro Molto from Joseph Haydn's Cello Concerto in C major. The 27-year-old cellist who formed the Cohen Music Trio with his parents, Raymond and Antje Ryle, performs on the 1692 Bonjour Stradivarius. In the 19th century, a Parisian craftsman shortened the Bonjour cello somewhat to adapt it to modern performance practice. Of course, Stradivari is known as the supreme violin maker, but musicians also praise his cellos, especially the later models. They are smaller and deeper than the modern versions, and they resonate with a beautiful, robust tone. Cellist Jacqueline Dupre left an indelible impression with her definitive performances on the Davidoff Stradivarius. A prolonged illness interrupted a brilliant career and tragically cut short her life. But Miss Dupre's spirit lives on through the music and the instruments she loved. Today, the Davidoff has passed to Yo-Yo Ma, and a great tradition continues. Now we find Yo-Yo Ma with Strad expert and restorer Charles Baer.
This is the Davidoff Stradivarius. For me, it's one of the greatest instruments I've ever played on. It hadn't been played for 12 years. At that time, Jackie had stopped playing.
Right.
And when she first lent it to me, I had only heard it in a room at Etienne Batelot's shop in Paris. And it was the most extraordinary sound. It was so seductive that I fell in love with the sound of the instrument. But with every month of playing it in concert, it kind of, the tone, everything just got larger, fuller, deeper.
Yeah.
Do you ever think of wood as something that is, that needs to be exercised? You know, that somehow the grain, the fibers in the wood, that somehow by playing with the instrument really, you know, vibrating, playing deeply into the strings, the whole instrument is vibrating.
Yeah.
And if it stops, if you don't let it vibrate for, let's say, a year, 2 years,
right,
it needs to
it goes
be
to
loosened
sleep
again.
a bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't go to sleep so that you wouldn't immediately recognize it as a great instrument, but the vibrations slow down and they quieten down, and the whole thing, yes, it does go to sleep. It's not a bad thing for an instrument, I don't think, to go to sleep.
To go to sleep, but
for
then
a
it
little
needs
while,
to, yeah.
and then it needs to be played.
So it's almost a living thing.
That's right.
Now think of this thing, I mean, it's just like a... Charlie, I can't help but comparing sound and memory of sound with memory of taste,
Right.
like with wines. And it seems to me that there's so many analogies that you can draw, but particularly from the form of memory. First of all, a sound hits you, you digest it, you have a sense, density of whatever. With wine, there's you know, oakiness, flavor, you think of its composition. But then there's a glow afterwards. And with this cello, I know that in a hall, when we're talking about volume, that actually it doesn't hit you over the head with, you know, its massiveness, but the glow is what makes part of the sound memorable. I really believe this instrument has a soul and it has an imagination.
Stradivari is more close to the ideal I have in my ear, to more close also to a feminine voice. Del Gesù, for example, when Del Gesù is very masculine, also very tough for playing, pretty rough instrument. It's much larger. You need, huge fingers, and I think it's something for a real guy. I could never manage with a Del Gesù, and Amati, that's of course out of any question because the sound is just too small. But I have another one, Nicola Galliano, which is close to Stradivari's quality, but there's this special personality missing, this excitement you get even of touching Stradivari.
Nigel Kennedy now joins Yehudi Menuhin for the autumn movement from the Four Seasons. Here, Vivaldi showcases the strings with Baroque bravura, but the artist must also show the imagery behind his colorful text, a text that reads, "The peasants celebrate with dance and song their heartfelt joy in the bountiful harvest, and many of them are so fired by Bacchus that slumber overcomes their enjoyment." Nigel Kennedy with Yehudi Menuhin and the English Chamber Orchestra played the opening allegro from the autumn section of Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Mr. Kennedy's Stradivarius, the 1707 Cathédrale, was a prized possession of one of Napoleon's officers and, more recently, of the violinist Marius Casatsu. Stradivari scrupulously labeled his instruments, but dishonest dealers, including his own two sons, forged counterfeit seals and passed off replicas as genuine. But in the checkered history of Stradivarian skullduggery, nothing surpasses the boldness of the Huberman heist. Next, more music from the Four Seasons, Pinka Zuckerman, and the 50-year saga of the stolen Strad.
So Strad is going to be here forever, eh?
An original Strad was stolen over 50 years ago at Carnegie Hall. We join Marcelle Hall, the widow of thief violinist Julian Altman, who tells quite a tale.
Well, Julian Altman was on his deathbed. He was dying of cancer. And I went to the hospital, and he said, we must do something about my violin. Now, I'd known him for over 17 years. And I'd known it was a beautiful violin. Anybody could tell that. But he never, when I would ask him, what kind of a violin is this? He'd say it's a Bastardi. So he said to me, you must do something about the violin. Go home, open up the case, and inside, and he was a very secretive person, so I'd never touched his violin. Inside, between the case and the cover, you'll find some papers. So I went home and I found these. I was absolutely appalled. I was shocked. And here were all these copies of old, Xerox copies of old newspaper clippings from 1936. And I'm reading Huberman's violin, stolen from Carnegie Hall. And I went back to the hospital the next day and I said, are you telling me that this violin you've been playing ever since I've known you, I've known him for about 17 years, is Mr. Gibson, Huberman's violin? And he said, yes. So I said, how did you touch it? How did you get it? He said, well, I was a young man, about 21 years old, and he was playing in the Russian Bear in New York. And he said, this man came one night, who's a friend of mine, and he described the man. He said he was dark-haired, had big brown eyes, was quite a person with the ladies, very sticky-fingered. And I thought, my God, you sound like you're describing yourself, because this was exactly him. His friend had brought it to him under his coat, because it was cold, February 28th. And he said, I've just stolen this violin from Carnegie Hall. I'm dead broke. I need $100. If you'll get $100 for me, I'll let you keep the violin, and your boss can perhaps help you sell it, and then we'll split 3 ways. So Julian went around, this is his story, scrounged around the restaurant and got the $100, handed it over, and said, all right, I'll go to my boss. The friend, went away. Julian went to his boss. His boss said, I'll look into the matter. And the next morning he said, ditch that violin. It's hot all over New York. It's in every newspaper. And so Julian ditched the violin. He played it for 51 years. So he played it in some of the best places. He played for Franklin Roosevelt. He played for Richard Nixon, Hubert Humphrey, just to name a few people. And he played it in the Washington Symphony.
This is a Stradivari.
To conclude, we hear Winter from the Four Seasons. Soloist Daniel Phillips from Pittsburgh was taught by his father, a violinist in the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, and studied at the Juilliard School in New York under Ivan Galamian and Sally Thomas. He performs on a 14-inch Strad dated 17-2. Our gala tribute to Antonio Stradivari has ended with his performance of Winter from Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Daniel Phillips supplied the warm glow of a burnished Stradivarius, and Sir Yehudi Menuhin conducted the expert ensemble of the English Chamber Orchestra. At 93, Antonio Stradivari was still working and fussing over the tiniest details of design and sonic quality. The poet Longfellow saluted the enduring beauty of the Stradivarius. Exquisite was it in design, a marvel of the lutist's art, perfect in each minutest part, and in its hollow chamber. Thus, the maker from whose hand it came had written his unrivaled name, Antonius Stradivarius.